So I'm just going to quickly share my screen again. I'm very mindful that we are running a little bit short on time, so we'll just move quickly on to Pernille from DAB. And yes, off where, sorry, Pernille?
I'll share from my screen if that's okay, because they got a bit fuzzy when I copied them into your SharePoint.
Oh, yep.
Is that all right?
That is totally fine.
All right. Everybody see that? All right. So my teaching this semester was related to both undergraduate and postgraduate. And I was fortunate enough to meet with my undergraduate elective class in the first week of class before we went on the break. And so I took advantage of that class with the anticipation that we would be moving online, and essentially asked them what they would like and what their needs were for an online class. So the class was Introduction to Resilient Development, and we took the approach that this was a way of building personal resilience and ownership of their education. So I did do a lot of research before that class to have an idea of what I might be willing to do and what I might not be willing to do, in the sense of, were there things that were potential options that I thought wouldn't actually create a good learning outcome and or would be so time consuming to not be feasible on a personal level. But interestingly, they opted for a lot of the things that I had hoped that they would opt for. And we talked a lot about learning styles and needs. And we had some people that said they were really visual learners. We had some people that said they really need to read something for it to stick. But really the discussion was, online learning, what does it look like for you? The ultimate result was a series of online learning modules. I put those into YouTube, which I'll show you here at the end what that looked like, and created a YouTube playlist where I integrated supplemental videos that I found online as examples. So for example, where I use case studies, international case studies, sure, I can go through a few slides and explain what's happening in South Korea, but actually there was a video that I found online that was much more visual and explanatory, and frankly did a better job than I could do because they were on the ground with video cameras. So I took those slides out of my slide deck and instead included those supplemental videos in the playlist. In addition to that, I had all my slide note pages included in PDF, and that way they could see my script and they could take notes. Where I had guest speakers that didn't provide script, I printed out the 3 per page slide notes where they could then take notes on the side. In both cases, the students were very thankful for that. We provided supporting materials. So for example, in the case of the video of South Korea, what they were doing with the water sensitive urban design there, I also found a reading on the same topic. So for the students who preferred reading, they had the option to do the reading or the supplemental video. And then we did group work activities, breakouts, and basically it was an opportunity for them to discuss and network. So they had that work by the Saturday prior to the Thursday class. And then we did a live Zoom class every week on Thursdays at the last hour of the normally scheduled time. The idea being that they could actually go through all of the online learning modules in the first 2 hours if they didn't have other time allocated to this class. We spent that hour, 20 minutes with what I call the class chat time. And that was sort of an opportunity to just generally check in with them. A lot of times I would stay off the call and just let them chat. And the students really felt like that was useful for them because they felt like they had an opportunity to connect with some of their classmates. Then we spent about 25 or 30 minutes doing Q&A on the module, and we concluded that with a weekly quiz. I did not originally have a weekly quiz in my subject outline for this class. The second assessment was a site visit where they had to do a security analysis. But the students asked for a weekly quiz, which I thought was quite self-aware of them because they felt like they may not necessarily be motivated to stay on track watching all these videos and readings and things like that each week. So they actually asked for that quiz, and I was able to make that adjustment in the subject outline when we moved online. And they also, the Zoom calls were recorded so that students who wanted to were able to go online. So with the YouTube playlist, here's an example of one of them. It's kind of small on the screen here, but each module had a description, the title. I could see who had viewed it. In yellow here, those are my modules, and the other ones are the supplemental modules that I included. So here's my South Korean case study example that I was able to find online. When you click on them, each module, individual module has a description. I can check the analytics. The other parts of the playlist are over here so they can easily go through them, and then they watch the video. I always included a small video of myself in the corner based on feedback from the first week where students said that they felt disconnected when it was just an audio, and that, so I tried the video the next week, and the feedback overwhelmingly was positive about that. So I continued to do that. Just like the earlier speakers talked about, when I thought about preparing for the learning environment, I guess I took the same approach in that students really need to know that we care and that they're not in this sort of experiment alone. I started every single week of those Zoom calls with a regular check-in, just so that they know that I want to know, how are they doing? How are they doing with the online learning? If there's anything that they need to help them learn better at home. And they also were really conscious, and I think felt comfortable that I was available afterwards if there was something they didn't want to share. So at the end of every class, I sort of stayed online for 15 minutes, and anybody who wanted to could stay online, and we would make an individual one-on-one appointment. And I think someone else also commented this idea of being human. Share little stories about, you know, funny things that have happened because of Corona, or there's my pet Dodger. I adopted him a couple weeks into class, and the students every single week asked me, oh, where's your puppy? Let's see how much he's grown this week. So it became sort of a thing at the start of class. I would let him hop up in my lap, and they could see how big he'd gotten. At one point, I bought a really beautiful piece of Aboriginal art, and I shared that with them, and we had a discussion about that type of thing. So I think it's really important that they see you as a person, and that we see them as, you know, humans as well. So we had people with bringing their pets onto class at the same time and had interactions. In terms of what worked, the two big things, I think, were this sort of hybrid teaching approach with the pre-learning modules and then the short live Zoom Q&A sessions, combined with that weekly quiz, was very effective in ensuring. I'll say that the final submissions that we received in this class this year were exceptional compared to previous years. And I think a lot of students took advantage of the different learning opportunities in this class. Also, the hybrid content presentation with the PowerPoints with voiceovers or videos, as the case may be, the way that we uploaded them into a YouTube playlist. I was able to do that because I didn't have any students in China. Next semester, I'm going to be using the same approach as the YouTube playlist, but using the H5P and using and creating my own playlist using Kaltura and H5P and Canvas. The PowerPoint slides with the PDF format for them to take notes and or read the script if they're not really audio learners. Supporting video content and supporting readings and mixing that in, I think, also worked really well. One of the students commented, it works really well when watching a video on YouTube. You can pause the lecture and take notes meticulously. So they like that a lot. Some of the things that didn't work, as someone else mentioned, students not turning on their cameras, not participating at all. You wonder, you know, are they even there? Are they learning anything? There were a few technical issues in terms of students without cameras and therefore unable to visually participate. And I did mentally note that we do not have an exam in this class, but if we did, that would have been a problem for those students. Sometimes the students felt a lack of engagement with the Q&A sessions in those Zoom sessions. So I had one student who specifically commented that he said, you know, he wished it was more engaging. And I said, well, what can I do to make it more engaging? He goes, actually, you're doing, I think, everything that you can do. I just like to see people in person. So, you know, it was nice that he acknowledged that I was trying to do all of those different things, but I was very conscious as well that he wasn't feeling that connection that he did in person. And that leads to the next one, reduced social connection and learning engagement, just because they get a little frustrated with being alone. So as one comment, what works not as well, this was the same student that commented on what worked well and what didn't. The real classroom experience, the online format doesn't bring the same real classroom experience. However, things worked as well as can be. And then I won't go through all these, but I just pulled out, I did, in my post-grad, I took all the lessons from my undergrad class. During that one break week, I actually, that following weekend, had to run 2 blocks. So I had to transition 54 hours of content in 10 days, which was a bit of a challenge, but I was really thankful that I had that undergrad sort of co-design experience, and I used those lessons for the postgrads. And at the end of the block, I asked for some feedback in case we had to do this again and how I could improve. And interestingly, most of the feedback was really positive. I thought this one right here was really kind of funny because it's a sustainable urban development class. I didn't have to travel, so less CO2 in the environment and more time for me. So that was kind of, you know, a bit cheeky but funny. But, you know, overall, they seemed to like the structure. They liked to be able to interact and choose how they wanted to view the materials and have that flexibility, and having the opportunity to do things with groups as well, to have that connection. And that's it for me.
Great, thank you so much, Pernille.